Well, first, let me start by saying this. So we had, a couple players scheduled today. I just felt like it was important, with all that's going on right now, that you guys hear from me first on some of these issues. So I just kind of wanted to lead the way on some of these discussions. So appreciate you guys' time. Go ahead, Adam. Hold on, you're muted, bud.
Go ahead, Adam.
Coach, I wanted to get your thoughts on the events of the last week and a half. Certainly the tragedy in Minnesota, but also the response nationally with the protests involved.
I mean, I think, like you said, what happened was, in a lot of ways a tragedy. And, and for me right now, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of anger, a lot of emotion, a lot of emotions. But for me, I just want to make sure that the spotlight is on George Floyd and the horrible murder that occurred, and that we focus on George Floyd, his family, and justice for the Floyd family.
Omar?
Oh, you're muted, Omar.
Omar, ask your question.
When you created the statement that you released earlier, you mentioned the Rooney Rule and different instances that you've seen and experienced during your NFL career as a coach. What prompted you to intertwine those two?
I think race is a tough subject for a lot of people, but I think it's something that, I think a lot of people are seeing that it's something that we need to kind of confront head on and communicate and have discussions. And I think it was an opportunity to speak on that. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about the Rooney Rule and the adjustments that were made over the last week. And, with the events that are going on now, I just felt like it was an opportunity to speak and talk about those and have those conversations because they're important. And, in order to try to bring people together, I think communication is vital.
Hal?
You're muted, Hal.
Can you hear me now?
I got you, Hal.
Hi, thanks for doing this. Clearly, your players have a tremendous platform on which to express themselves on this subject. How might you encourage them to take advantage of that? And will that include potentially kneeling again during the national anthem this coming season?
Hal, I understand that question. I appreciate it. But like I said earlier, I think to me, the conversation, the focus, the spotlight, needs to be on, George Floyd, justice for George Floyd, obviously condolences for his family. I think we're in a situation here where, and I've had this conversation numerous times over the last couple of days, we're in agreement. It's not often that everyone's in agreement on a topic. I think what happened to George Floyd was a tragedy. It was disturbing. I think, as a country, we're in agreement. As a world, I think we're all in agreement that what happened to him wasn't right. I mean, it doesn't matter race, religion. I think people were just disturbed by what they saw. I think to me, the focus needs to stay on that. This focus needs to stay on justice for George Floyd and his family, and really making the necessary changes so that doesn't happen again. So that's all I want to talk about, to be quite honest.
Chris Perkins?
You're muted, Chris. Muted. I can't hear you. Okay.
All right, we'll go to Omar.
No, you can get Chris. Go ahead. Chris, you were muted. I didn't hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm wondering what the conversations have been like this season with your children regarding both COVID-19 and George Floyd.
Look, my conversations with my family, I try to keep them private. I'll continue to do that, but there have been many conversations that have been had about both the pandemic as well as these the last week. So, but those are private. Those are private conversations. I think those are necessary conversations also. But any conversation with my family or with the players or anyone internally within the Dodgers, I'm always going to keep those private.
Adam Beasley.
Well, we saw Kayvon march a couple days ago, and I'm sure he's not alone among the players. What guidance have you given them to obviously be a participant in a very important part of American history, but also understanding the surroundings and some of these protests got a bit out of hand? What conversations have you had with them about that?
I mean, my number one thing for guys is they have a right to protest, and I support their right to protest. But even more than that, it's about being careful. I want my players to be careful. I actually had a friend who was murdered in Indianapolis. His name is Chris Beatty, a good friend. He actually played football with Lance Bennett, who was on our staff. Beatty was full of life. He was a great human being, and he was protesting in Indianapolis, and he was murdered last weekend. So, when I guess to me that was the first thing that kind of came to mind when Kayvon was protesting. And look, I've had a lot of conversations with players over the last few days, and I support these guys, and I understand the emotions that they're going through, but at the same time, I want them to be smart. I care about each one of these guys, and I had a situation hit home pretty closely for me, and so there's some fear on my end, to be honest with you. But I might as well take this time to send condolences to Beatty's family and his friends in Indianapolis. I mean, this guy was just an incredible human being, and it's sad. It's just another tragedy that we're dealing with. Hopefully, we can learn from it and again make the necessary changes so that these things don't happen again.
Cam Wolf.
Hey, Flo, sorry for your loss on Chris. I know that you don't want to talk to us about what you speak about with your players, but how have you kind of handled maybe your emotions around George Floyd's murder and maybe the emotions of your players as you go about, this offseason period?
I mean, I think it's the only thing that we're watching. I mean, we're dealing with a pandemic. We're dealing with a lot of, people are hungry, people are out of jobs, there's a pandemic, and then people are angry as well. So I think guys need time to be angry, have a platform to show their emotions. And they have that with me, and they have that with our coaching staff, and we've had conversations just like everyone else has. But at the same time, these guys, they've been working also. I mean, they've been working. They've been working on the football, and it's been a kind of a place to get away for a little bit. But yeah, our hearts and minds are with the Floyd family, and the Arbery family, and Breonna Taylor, and we, there's too many instances like this that we have to share our condolences. So. But yeah, I think these guys, they have my support. I know it's an emotional time. I hope that answers your question, Cam.
Omar.
As a person of color, can you share, I guess, with the world, when was the first time that you realized your race was a factor in your existence?
I've always known, since I was a little boy. I mean, I know that there's that race was a factor. I would say I've always known. And again, I could go into personal stories and say this, that. But I'm going to go back to, my number one point. This isn't, really about me. It's about, what's happening in this country. And again, I think we got a situation here where we can actually make some change. It's not often that there's 100% agreement across the board that changes need to occur. So rather than talk about me and my personal situation, let's put the focus on that and hopefully make some progress.
Adam Beasley.
Flo, there's no easy segue to football, but I want to get your thoughts about the league letting coaches back in to work and what your offseason has been like with the players, and do you think you'll be able to get your hands on them and see them before the start of training camp?
Yeah, I mean, I got the memo probably right around the same time you guys did. So apparently we're allowed to go back tomorrow. I think it's tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. But we'll meet on that as a staff later on today, to be honest with you. I mean, it's been, less than an hour. So we'll talk about that, later today. I mean, I think guys are all set up in a way. We've got meetings with the players tomorrow. So everyone's set up at their home. So imagine it'd be hard to, we would hate to have a glitch with the players because we want to go back in the office. But, those are things we'll talk about as a staff with our video department, with our IT department, with the coaches. They all do a great job. I mean, if you didn't have respect and admiration for your IT and your video departments after, during this whole situation, and you do now. So our guys have done a great job. But we'll talk about that to this afternoon as a staff. And but as far as how this has gone with the players, I think the Zoom meetings have been good. I mean, we made the best of the situation. And like I try to tell them, we're not going to make excuses or point fingers or say this is why something didn't happen. We're going to make the best of the situation and try to improve, try to get better, try to improve. I mean, I can't, I don't know. I don't have different words to say that. We're just trying to improve and get better, and we try to do that on a day-to-day basis and string good days together. I mean, a lot of the onus is on them individually to train and work out, and you wish you had your hands on them, but that's out of our hands as well. I don't know. I mean, you guys found out about when we're coming in, probably 5 minutes after I did. So I'm sure you guys will find out, when we'll get the players 5 minutes after I do. So once we, that happens, we'll plan accordingly and try to do what we feel is best for the Dolphins.
Hal.
Brian, we've talked in this meeting about where everybody wants to go, where these millions of people marching want to go as we move forward. If you were to outline a roadmap for where we are to where we want to go, where people are all looked upon as equal, what would that roadmap look like?
Well, again, as you guys have heard me, I'm a baby steps guy. So to look far down and, I think at the end of the day, you mentioned it, where we would like to go. But I think there's going to be there's a lot of dialogue that has to happen first and foremost. And I would say it's a long road. So I think it's about each individual's heart. Where is that, and making sure people's hearts are in the right places, and there's a respect and I won't say admiration, but just an overall respect for your fellow man or female, man or woman, excuse me. But I think we got a long way to go, and hopefully, we use this tragedy as a starting point to get to where the place you're talking about.
Guys, we're going to take a couple more questions. Adam Beasley.
I wanted to ask one football question, if I could. I wanted to know how the development of Tua has gone remotely, how his health is, and just a status update on him.
You know, the rookies in general, I think they've all, based on what we can do, I think they've all done a good job. They're all in meetings. They're all learning. They're all doing everything they can possibly do to pick up the information, to train. But, you know, quite honestly, you know, it's hard not to have your hands on them. Specific to Tua, he's working hard. He's picking up the information. But, you know, you want to get your hands on them, quite honestly. So I think they're all doing a good job. I think they all have a long way to go. But again, specific to the injury, I mean, I haven't seen them. You know, our doctors haven't seen them. So you know, to give you any information on that, or, you know, try to would be, I shouldn't do that. So I hope that answers your question.
Final question for Travis.
Coach, I want to go back to the way you facilitate the discussion in your own locker room, in your own building. And how do you do that, going about facilitating the platform to encourage discussion among your guys as a team and as a staff?
I mean, I think a lot of it is, you know, individual. I think a lot of, some guys, I've taken many calls already, from players, from coaches, from, you know, a lot of different people. And I think the number one thing is to listen. I think that's, we have 2 years for a reason. You know, everyone's kind of heard that. So I think listening is and helping them understand each of their individual stories, and we each have a different story. Some are different than others, but if we listen and try to understand and step into someone else's shoes, you know, white, black, you know, regardless of religion, football player, non-football, I mean, it's we're all a little bit different, and I think there's got to be more kindness. There's got to be more acceptance. And I think as far as, you know, those are kind of some of the things I try to spotlight in our conversations, is that when you are having these conversations, try to listen more than you speak in a lot of instances. So that doesn't mean don't speak. That's not what I'm saying. But, you know, listen as much as you speak. So hopefully that answers your question.